In the previous section, we briefly looked at what tenses are and then explored the present tenses of the English language. In this chapter, we will look into the past tenses. As with the present, there are 4 aspects to the past tense in English, and each can be divided into positive, negative, and question forms. They look like this. I walked. I didn't walk. Did I walk? And so on. Let's look at each tense in turn. The past simple is a really common and basic part of the English language, and knowledge of it is essential to IELTS success. Generally speaking, we form the past simple by adding ed to a verb. However, in English there are hundreds of irregular verbs. So, whereas you might say I walked or she watched, there are also cases like we ate or they wrote, for which you simply need to remember the correct past form. Here is an example using an irregular verb, to run. I ran, I did not run, did I run? And so on. We use the past simple for an action that was completed in the past, such as, I graduated in 2007. She left home 2 years ago. We also use it for routine actions in the past. We called her every day. He spoke with his grandmother often. Like the present continuous, the past continuous is formed using to be with verb plus ing. However, as this is a past tense, to be is changed into the past, was or were, while the present participle, verb plus ing, remains. We can see an example here with the verb to clean. There are 3 uses that all suggest an act that was going on for a period of time. Describing a past action during a particular period of time that may have continued after that period of time. For example, we were walking our dogs last night. I was brushing my teeth at 10 o'clock. We use the past continuous to describe a longer action that is interrupted by a shorter action. I was washing the dishes when I cut my hand. She was driving to work when the accident happened. We can also use it for an action that is interrupted by another action. They were listening to music when the doorbell rang. It was sleeping when the fireworks started. While the present perfect uses has or have, the past perfect simply uses had with the past participle of the main verb. Let's look at an example using the verb to eat. I had eaten. I had not eaten. Had I eaten? And so on. The past perfect is used to refer to an event or action that took place prior to the time period considered. Therefore, in the previous examples, the conversation would revolve around an event that took place in the past, but the eating took place before that. For example, do you remember last year when we first arrived at the hotel? Yes, I remember. Oddly enough, I recall being very hungry. Well, you had not eaten for hours. In this case, we use the past perfect to show that the eating took place, or in this case it didn't take place, before the arrival at the hotel. Here are some more related uses, describing repeated or extended situations, such as, "We had lived in that house for 6 years. By then, they had studied for a long time." Or to explain a situation, "I wasn't afraid because I had expected the worst." He felt confident because he had already prepared. Finally, the past perfect continuous is essentially the same as the present perfect continuous, except that the point of reference is in the past. Let's look at another example using the verb to search. I had been searching. I had not been searching. Had I been searching? And so on. This tense describes an action that occurred further back in time than the other events, but that overlaps them. They had been studying for several hours when the phone rang. She had been working in a hospital before the war began. Not only is the past simple incredibly common in everyday speech, but it is also very useful in the writing exam. In particular, in Task 1 you will mostly be using the past simple to describe details in a graph or table, because they will likely feature dates that are from the past. Here are some examples. Prices rose in the first quarter. The interest rate went up between 1999 and 2001. French people consumed more wine than Italian people during the period. In 1860, the population stood at 4 million. You may also use the past perfect in order to explain relationships between points in time with greater clarity. As we discussed previously in the past perfect section, this tense shows an action that occurred prior to another action in the past. Here are some examples. After it had risen to 46, the total volume then dropped to 38. Sales returned to a higher level after they had fallen to just 6,000. The other past tenses are not particularly useful in the IELTS writing exam, but can greatly improve the accuracy of your overall English. Therefore, they may come in useful in other parts of the IELTS exam.